Discover the amazing transformation. 7 surprising ways to overcome the fear of asking for help. Sarah pressed her palm against the cold metal of the diner counter, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythmic clinks of silverware and the low hum of conversation that filled the bustling room. The smell of burnt coffee and sizzling eggs enveloped her like a suffocating blanket, intensifying her feelings of entrapment. As she served the chorus of familiar faces, Bill, with his unpredictable sense of humor, and Mary, who always complained about the portion sizes, she felt a familiar heaviness settle in her chest. This was her life. Endless shifts at the diner, juggling bills, and raising her kids alone, all while suppressing the dreams that once flickered in her heart. At 32, the woman she saw in the mirror was someone she hardly recognized, a promise diminished by circumstances. She had once aspired to wear a white coat, armed with knowledge and confidence, helping those in need. Yet here she stood, pouring coffee into chipped mugs for patrons who only half listened to her stories. Every hour spent pouring syrup and frosting pancakes felt like an agonizing march away from her true self. The stack of bills on her kitchen table loomed like a shadowy specter, and now, with her old car gasping its last breath, she could feel it collapsing down on her. The thought of asking Mike for help clawed at her mind. But what if he saw it as weakness? What if he judged her as a failure, a mother who couldn't make ends meet? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening, echoed the voice from a video Sarah had mindlessly caught during a rare break. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Even that simple reminder felt like a lifeline, floating by, a reminder that connections mattered. Yet Sarah wrestled with the weight of her isolation. A storm was brewing, not just in the sky above Maplewood, but deep within her, thrumming an anxious melody that made her muscles tense. As she wiped down the counter, her mind was consumed by what-ifs. What if Jake got worse? What if the landlord threw them out? The anxiety twisted like a coil in her stomach, knotting tighter as thoughts of emergency room charges and missed paychecks churned her insides. But she stood tall. After all, she had to be the rock, right? The single mom who would do it all. Her mother raised her on self-sufficiency, never rely on anyone. Yet that spark of independence burned her even now. As she glanced out the window, watching the rain drum against the pavement, despair ignited her soul. Could she truly carry this burden alone? The sensation of panic gripped her, an overwhelming tide, ready to pull her under. When her phone buzzed, she hesitated. It was Mike again. The thought of his offer rang in her ears, echoing sharply against the clamor of self-doubt. Just then, a chilling wave of realization washed over her. She was sinking. The eviction notice would come, the bills would remain unpaid, and loneliness would claw at her spirit. Her heart ached with an urgent need for connection, a pleading desire to reach out, yet she didn't. Not yet. But as the rain cascaded outside, deep inside she pondered. Was it time to finally lean on someone? The storm loomed larger within her. Pressure mounted. What if she missed the chance to get help now, backing herself into a corner where no safe harbor awaited? It was agonizing, and as dread settled heavily on her chest, she couldn't help but wonder if the next storm would either break her or force her to learn to navigate through the chaos. The phone buzzed insistently, breaking through the cacophony of sounds around Sarah, each vibration a reminder of the decision looming before her. She could only imagine the weight of Mike's concern behind that screen, a friend who had seen the tightness in her smile, felt the cracks forming in her resolve. With trembling fingers, she swiped to unlock it, her heart racing with every potential outcome flashing in her mind. "Hey, just checking in. Let me know if you need anything," the text read, a lifeline tossed amidst her swirling thoughts. Was he genuinely offering help, or was it merely a polite gesture? The familiar pang of doubt shot through her. Maybe he wouldn't understand, or worse, maybe he would judge her inability to manage alone. A suffocating silence filled her mind as she stared at the keyboard, her fingers hovering just above the letters. She blinked back tears, a sensation of constriction tightening within her. She had always been the one people turned to, not the one who needed support. Yet here she was, teetering on the brink of acknowledging her struggles. Could reaching out be the first step toward reclaiming the life she yearned for? The thought of admitting her reliance on another person terrified her, filling her with a raw vulnerability she had spent years suppressing. But today felt different. Perhaps it was the relentless rhythm of the rain, that soundtrack of tumult mirroring her mindset, or maybe it was the fear of spiraling backward into helplessness that finally nudged her toward realization. Asking for help could be a strength, not a weakness. The more she stood still in her isolation, the more her dreams drifted further away like shadows at dusk. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah began typing, her pulse racing as she poured out her thoughts, the worries, the mounting bills, the dread of falling behind. But instead of sending the text immediately, she paused. Was this enough? Was this merely the first step or a genuine plea for connection? As minutes passed, Sarah found herself lost in contemplation, the world around muted in contrast to the storm of emotions swirling within. She reminisced about her childhood aspirations, her desire to work in healthcare, her dreams of transforming lives. That spark of ambition had all but turned to ash, and yet, perhaps another spark could reignite it. Maybe stepping outside her comfort zone and confronting the fears that held her captive could awaken a domain of possibilities. She stood up, the diner's fluorescent lights flickering slightly, which only amplified the urgency of her realization. If she could manage the chaos of motherhood and challenges at the diner, learning to ask for help shouldn't defeat her. Could instead be the powerful catalyst she needed. With newfound determination, she hit send, her heart racing as the message zipped away into the digital ether. Almost immediately, her phone chimed in response. Thanks for sharing that. Let us talk more when you can. You're not alone in this, Sarah. Micah's supportive words flashed across the screen, wrapping around her like a warm blanket on a cold night. Relief washed over her, a momentary balm for the anxieties that had clawed at her relentlessly. But as hope began to bloom, a haunting question whispered behind her excitement. What would she do if Micah's help opened doors she never expected? Would she be ready to face the parts of herself she had buried, or would confronting those deeper struggles threaten to pull her under all over again? Night settled in the diner, casting shadows that danced across the walls, mirroring the flicker of uncertainty in her heart. The next step lay before her, a path not yet traveled but shimmering with potential. And for the first time in years, Sarah stood on the precipice of her transformation, uncertain yet hopeful. The moment of truth was creeping closer. Would she seize this opportunity to reconstruct her identity or let fear seal her fate? The answer depended on her willingness to embrace the discomfort ahead. A sense of urgency coursed through Sarah as she stepped out of the diner and into the cool night air. The gusts carried with them both the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and the heaviness of doubt that had long weighed on her. Each breath was a small act of bravery as she wrestled with the commitment she had made to herself, embracing vulnerability. As she walked, the city lights flickered like stars through a veil of clouds, and she pondered how to engage with this newfound intent. What would asking for help truly mean? Maybe it was time to embrace not just the support from Mike, but also to explore the quiet corners of her ambitions, and to reclaim the dreams long overshadowed by demands of life. Sarah planned her next move, envisioning a conversation with Mike that could usher her into the light of possibilities. She could reveal her desire to return to school, to hone her skills in healthcare. The more she thought about it, the more she recognized how far she had drifted from that young girl eager to help others. The thought sent a jolt through her. Had she forgotten that part of herself? As she crossed the street, she felt the weight of unfulfilled potential pressing down on her. Each step echoed her hesitation and longing. This marked the line between her old self and who she aspired to become. The city hummed around her, an orchestra of life, yet her focus remained laser-sharp, relentlessly fixated on how she could transform this moment of fear into a foundation for courage. She felt the phantom pulse of her ambitions, and though buried, they whispered for resurrection. The thought was both empowering and terrifying. The idea of facing not only Mike but the entirety of her past decisions felt insurmountable. What did she have to offer the world beyond motherhood? Could she bear the risks involved in pursuing deeper knowledge and skills? Her mind raced as she strategized her approach. Would Mike be an ally in this journey? Or would he represent more complications with his well-meaning interference? Crossing into a more tranquil part of the neighborhood, Sarah sought refuge in a quiet park, illuminated only by the soft glow of moonlight. Sitting on a weathered bench, she reflected, questioning whether this moment could lead to an invite for further exploration. Could she allow herself the joy of ambition once more without fear? As she sat, watching the gentle sway of branches, her phone chimed again. Mike reached out again, a simple question, curious but gentle. "What are you thinking?" That query dangled before her, a bridge leading to what could be a pivotal conversation. She could either draw back into her shell or leap into the realm of dialogue, one where she could express her passions and fears. Carefully, she began to compose her thoughts, but a flicker of self-doubt surfaced again. Would he still see the capable woman he knew or the faltering spirit who doubted her own skills? A clenching feeling tightened in her chest, paralyzing her fingers on the screen. These were challenges not just with others but fundamentally with herself. She had to confront the narrative that had long dictated her limitations. Seeking help wasn't just about learning from Mike. It was about learning to trust herself. With determination flooding her thoughts, Sarah took a deep breath, setting intention to confront her fears head-on. Maybe this was more than just a conversation. It was the first step toward sketching a new roadmap to her future. But just before she sent the message, a sudden realization struck her. What if Mike wasn't the only one expected to step out of comfort? What were the risks she needed to face beyond just confessing her dreams? How would she respond when confronted with her own insecurities? As she contemplated this revelation, she sensed the air thickening with the weight of unaddressed topics. The conversation with Mike could ignite a series of deeper reflections, opening the door to unknown aspects of herself that demanded exploration. Would she have the courage to illuminate the shadows that lurked within her heart? She knew this was an inflection point, the threshold of a critical choice to embrace both the fear and the flame of her ambitions. Now, with her heart heavier and yet lighter, she prepared to summon the resolve to face the unfamiliar. What awaited her on the other side of that message? Support or unsettling truths? Sarah's next step would shape more than her journey. It would redefine what she was capable of becoming. Tension coiled around Sarah like a thick fog. Sitting on the bench in the park, she closed her eyes for a moment, each breath aligning with the rhythm of the city that pulsed around her. The question Mike had sent lingered in her mind like an echo, challenging her to break free from the chains of self-doubt. What was she thinking, indeed? The night air cooled, but the warmth of determination sparked within her. She felt the familiar knot of anxiety twist tighter in her stomach. With trembling fingers, she composed a message, letting every carefully chosen word be a step toward her authenticity. "I've been thinking about going back to school, to study healthcare. I need to talk with you about it." Before she could question her audacity, she hit send and stared at the screen as if it held her fate. The message felt like a lifeline tossed into a turbulent sea. Clarity began to wash over her, not by the comforting splash of certainty, but through the shuddering recognition of her desires she had buried under the weight of life's monotony. The immediate stillness of her phone filled her with a simultaneous dread and excitement. She imagined Mike's reaction, envisioning him initially surprised but ultimately supportive. Yet, another thought crept in, whispering insidious fears that perhaps he would dismiss her aspirations as unrealistic or foolish. The uncertainty simmered as the minutes stretched into a small eternity. She stared out at the dark silhouettes of trees swaying against the moonlight. Memories of the girl who had once proudly worn a lab coat fluttered back, a ghost from her past that reminded her of passion and purpose. Another chime disrupted her thoughts, drawing her back to the concrete circumstances of her reality. "Wow, I didn't expect that. Why now?" The text was straightforward yet loaded with implications. This was her chance to articulate the passion that had flickered within her. The hesitation crept back, but this time, It simmered beneath a growing resolve. Why now? The answer swirled in her mind because she had spent far too long sidelining her dreams, letting the responsibilities of adulthood eclipse the vibrant aspirations that once drove her core. Taking a deep breath, she began to type again, because I've realized I want to contribute more. I don't just want to be a mom. I want to be someone who can help others in a meaningful way. Each word was a culmination of years of stifled ambition, and with every tap, she felt the light of authenticity seeping back into her soul. In the subsequent seconds, the silence became more deafening. Did Mike understand the weight of those words? Was she prepared for whatever response he would give? She chewed her lower lip, accepting the risk of these uncharted conversations. Each risk, each vulnerability carved a path toward the Sarah she desperately sought to revive. Finally, her phone vibrated a new message breaking her storm of thoughts. That's huge, Sarah. I think you should go for it. What's holding you back? His words hung in the air, heavy with both support and challenge. What was holding her back? The real answer clawed at her insides. It was not just fear of failure. It was the fear of stepping into a world where she had to showcase her skills, a realm filled with competitive peers and rigorous demands. Revealing these insecurities felt like peeling back the layers of a carefully constructed facade. She hesitated, finger hovering over the keyboard, grappling with her impulse to deflect the question. But an inner voice urged her to confront her admission head-on. Not everything could remain buried beneath formalities. Maybe it was time to not just state her ambitions, but also confess her doubts. With renewed focus, she typed, "Honestly, I'm afraid I won't be good enough. What if I can't keep up? I've been so out of touch with education and professional skills." Each disclosure built a bridge, allowing her authentic self to surface. She envisioned Mike's face, the supportive friend who had always believed in her potential, but, more importantly, the person who turned out to be a mirror of her own concerns and aspirations. She reflected now, not just on her fear of seeking help, but on the catalyst of connection that was beginning to unfold. Each keystroke steadied her resolve, reshaping the fears she had given power over her life. She would not allow them to dictate her worth any longer. As the phone chimed once more, preparing to unveil Mike's thoughts, it dawned on her that this was merely the opening act in her journey toward redemption. Could this conversation push her to redefine her narrative beyond being a mother? Her heart raced not solely from the impending message, but from the impending realization that each step she was now taking could ignite an uncharted trajectory for her future. Would the reflections of her aspirations be met with encouragement, or would they summon deeper, more unsettling truths? In that moment of anticipation, she dared to step forward. What awaited her on the horizon? The tension thickened around her, and as the screen lit up with Mike's reply, Sarah braced herself for a dialogue that could change everything. The glow of her phone fractured the shadows surrounding her, illuminating her face and deepening the lines of uncertainty etched there. Sarah's heart raced as she waited for Mike's reply, the silence now a weight pressing against her chest. Would this conversation pull her into a new chapter or entangle her further in her fears? Finally, the response came. "I get that, but you have to remember you've always been capable. You'll adapt. What if you started small? Maybe take a class online or sit in on a community college course first." His words echoed, cascading through her mind. Small steps. The simplicity of that suggestion startled her, pushing through the thick fog of her reservations. Mike had a point. Maybe she didn't need to leap headfirst into the unknown. Perhaps a careful exploration was the first move. But another wave of doubt surged forward. Could she really handle even the day-to-day demands of balancing education and motherhood? Taking a deep, steadying breath, she typed back, "That makes sense. I guess I'm just worried that balancing everything will be harder than I think." After sending the message, she leaned back on the cool metal of the bench and gazed up at the stars blotted by city lights. They were still there, concealed yet steadfast. Like her own ambitions, too often dimmed but never completely extinguished. What had she been afraid of all this time? The mere action of inquiring about classes felt monumental, yet a potent mix of hope and fear thrummed throughout her. Moments later, A new message pinged. You're definitely not the only one who feels that way. What if you connected with others going through the same thing? A study group or an online forum could help ease the load and keep you motivated. Connecting with others, that suggestion sparked something within her. Did she really believe she had to navigate this journey alone? The colorful tapestry of friendships and shared goals could become her lifeline. Pursuing her dreams didn't have to be a solitary endeavor, but rather a shared experience. Okay, I'm open to that idea. But what if I feel lost in the process? Like I don't belong? Her fingers hesitated over the screen again. What would happen when faced with younger, sharper minds? The nagging voice of her insecurities was relentless, but beneath it, the whisper of potential stirred. Then you remind yourself that everyone starts somewhere. You have life experience others don't. That counts for something, right? And no one else really arrived anyway. His reassurance peeled back another layer of self-doubt, exposing her underlying strengths. What if she leaned into her life experiences? They were not liabilities but assets that would enrich her contributions in a learning environment. Sarah recorded Mike's words in her mind, beginning to reshape her narrative. Strengthening connections and accepting her past as a resource instead of a hindrance, the foundations of a new identity were beginning to take form. But, as the clarity emerged, she recognized a lingering truth still simmering beneath the surface. Step by step, but what if I trip? What if I can't juggle everything? She typed, her heart pulsing as she awaited his response. In truth, the path ahead seemed daunting. Her fears twisted like vines around her resolve, hungry to bloom a misguided doubt. But wasn't the journey meant to be messy? Each stumble could become a testament to her tenacity. Then we figure it out together, like we always do, came the final reply. These words wrapped around her like a blanket of comfort. It occurred to Sarah that growth didn't mean she had to have it all figured out, only that she had to begin. If she could transform fear into inquiry, she could access a pathway to not only her future but a stronger version of herself. Eager to explore these newfound ideas further, Sarah's heart thudded, a steady rhythm of determination. There was a spark igniting within her, leading to a realization of possibilities. She could ask for help, break the barriers of isolation, and step into an arena richer than mere survival. However, just as hope began to fill the cracks of her fears, the nagging doubt tugged back. Would this newfound momentum hold as the reality of commitment began to set in? Taking action meant that facing potential regret and past failures would come rushing back, testing her newfound strength. She stared at her phone, feeling the weight of the yet-to-be-made decisions. The journey of transformation loomed ahead, daunting yet exhilarating. But could she summon the courage to leap into the unknown despite the shadows lurking in her mind? With every heartbeat echoing a battle cry for change, Sarah also felt the pull of her past, fraught and complicated. The next step would surely demand more than mere intent. It would require her to confront not just herself, but the echoes of who she had been. And as she sat beneath the dim glow of urban stars, a question hung in the air like a challenge. Would she truly rise from this cocoon of fear and uncertainty, or would she remain ensnared, a painted butterfly unable to take flight? The following morning, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, sunlight filtering through the window, casting a warm glow over a pile of books and notebooks that felt both promising and intimidating. She had taken Mike's advice to heart. Small steps. That meant the first step this morning was to research potential online courses. Yet as she scrolled through options, a familiar wave of anxiety crashed over her. Was she really qualified? Would she understand the material? The little doubts began to roll in like whispers that chided her, casting shadows over her resolve. She clicked on a course description, her fingers trembling slightly against the screen. Introduction to Psychology, it read. Interesting, but a year ago, she would have dismissed the thought, heavy with self-doubt. Instead of giving in, she paused. Why was she letting insecurity dictate her next move? She closed her eyes for a moment and inhaled deeply, recalling the vibrant conversation she had with Mike. Could she transform her self-doubt into inquiry? How often had she allowed fear to keep her from pursuing something worthwhile? Her stomach fluttered with a mix of apprehension and excitement. With renewed determination, Sarah opened a new tab in her browser and began compiling a list of courses that spoke to her passions. She focused on what she was drawn to instead of what she thought she should choose. As she jotted down options, she noticed a growing sense of ownership over her choices. This felt different. It was empowering. Each title represented a new possibility, a stepping stone toward the woman she wanted to become. In the days that followed, Sarah shifted her routine. Mornings became a dedicated time for study, with her children observing her new commitment. They began to mirror her enthusiasm in small ways, eager to share their triumphs over homework with her in return. It established a delightful rhythm, an unspoken pact of mutual support that blended seamlessly into their life together. Sarah longed to show them that ambition and vulnerability could coexist, that every new beginning required some brave steps into the unknown. Yet, she knew that knowledge was only part of her struggle. The impending reality of connecting with others loomed large. The thought of engaging in discussions with peers made her heart race. What if their perspectives were too advanced? What if they dismissed her lived experiences? Each scenario carved deeper grooves of anxiety in her mind. One evening, Sarah confided in Mike again. "I appreciate everything you've said. It just feels like entering a world where I absolutely don't belong. What if I'm out of my depth?" As she hit send, uncertainty washed over her, the shadows creeping back into view. Within moments, he replied, "You belong there not despite your past, but because of it. Dive into it and you might just inspire more than you realize. This is about you claiming your story." The realization settled in her chest, creating warmth where there had once been cold hesitation. Her life had a narrative that encompassed resilience and growth factors that would heighten her contributions. That night, she dedicated time to drafting a personal statement for her potential courses, weaving her experiences into a tapestry of growth rather than surrender. However, just as she felt the momentum building, a moment of doubt knocked at her door. Could she swing it all? Studies, kids, household demands, what if the weight became too much? For a fleeting moment, she considered pulling back, retreating to the safety of routine. But when she glanced at the personal statement, she saw the truth of her potential reflected in her own words. The journey wasn't about immediate perfection but progress, an ongoing development. She recognized that even if she stumbled, there was inherent power in trying. It was time to take the plunge, to step into the unknown with all its mysteries. As the evening melted into night, Sarah's resolve crystallized into a plan. She would sign up for a course. But just before she clicked the registration tab, a pulse of doubt revived, a haunting whisper that reminded her of all that could go wrong. And as she hesitated, the tension in her chest mounted. Would she allow those shadows to tighten their grip, or would she dare to step into the light? As she hovered, finger poised over the button, a question rang through her mind. Would embracing this vulnerability lead to strength and growth, or would it expose her to the potential of failure she had long feared? The weight of uncertainty clung to Sarah like a shroud, making her finger tremble above the mouse. Just as doubt threatened to pull her back into its familiar embrace, she recalled the way Mike had encouraged vulnerability. With a burst of resolve, she clicked, committing herself to a journey that had long been obscured by layers of fear. Once signed up, an exhilarating mix of anticipation and dread coursed through her. Days melded into evenings as she found herself poring over her new textbook, the words igniting a curiosity within her that had long been dormant. Each chapter was a door to unexplored dimensions of understanding, unraveling not only the intricacies of psychology, but also the complexities of her own thoughts and emotions. Morning study sessions transformed from solitary efforts into vibrant rituals. Sometimes her children would join her, each armed with their own homework, a lively exchange of knowledge and ideas cascading around the kitchen table. The unity in their pursuit of learning deepened their bond, punctuated with laughter and shared challenges. Sarah began to recognize the profound impact her journey had on her family, creating a collective sense of ambition. Yet with every step forward came a nagging voice that queried her legitimacy. She often found herself preparing for discussions, wanting to present well-formed arguments, fearing that her thoughts might be too simplistic. She had come so far, but each interaction reminded her of the weighty presence of doubt. Would her peers value the perspective of a mother returning to education? In one particular class discussion, the topic shifted to the importance of real-world experiences in psychology. As her classmates passionately debated theories, Sarah's voice emerged, faltering at first. She spoke of her own experiences of parenting, empathy, and resilience, drawing parallels between lived moments and theoretical constructs. Surprisingly, the room quieted, attentively listening as her story interlaced with academic insights. After the class, one of her classmates approached her. "Your experience resonates. I often forget about those real-life connections we all have." His validation sent a ripple of warmth through Sarah, igniting an undeniable spark of confidence. Maybe, just maybe, she did belong in this space. But as her understanding deepened, so did her realizations of the lengths to which she'd need to reach, both intellectually and emotionally. Each week posed new challenges. Discussions became progressively intricate, demanding her to stretch her thoughts and defend her position against more seasoned peers. An evening, after a challenging class, she found herself seated at the kitchen table, shoulders heavy from the day's emotional toll. Children were busy elsewhere, leaving her in solitude. The triumph of her participation was overshadowed by a lingering fear that her abilities could never keep pace with her ambition. She picked up her phone, fingers hovering above the screen. She typed a message to Mike. "I'm worried I won't be able to keep up." She hesitated and then pressed send, the message flinging her vulnerability into the ether. His reply was swift. "Embrace the struggle. It's where growth happens. Remember, it's okay to ask for help." His words struck a chord deep within. Why had she resisted the idea of reaching out? Wasn't that part of learning? The next class brought an opportunity. A group project that required collaboration. Sarah felt the familiar pangs of anxiety twist in her gut. This could be her moment to lean into her vulnerability. Would she muster the courage to ask her teammates for help? As she turned the project's requirements over in her mind, she confronted the depth of her fear. Was it the fear of failure, or perhaps the fear of exposing her limitations? Yet, her growth demanded engagement beyond the solitary confines of her study. As uneasy but resolute determination bubbled within her, she knew what would propel her forward. The commitment to navigate the unknown, armed with honesty and openness. That night, Sarah prepared for her first group meeting, mind racing with potential scenarios. If she dared to ask for help, might that open the door to an unexpected camaraderie and mutual support? The stakes were rising, her heart racing as she envisioned this pivotal moment on the horizon. The truth loomed large before her. This would either solidify her path or shake her resolve to its core. Would she risk the possibility of rejection in the quest for understanding, or let the moment slip away into darkness? As Sarah stepped into the bustling meeting room, each heartbeat resonated in her ears, a steady reminder of the challenge ahead. Chairs were arranged in a circle, with her team already engaged in spirited conversation about the project. She took a deep breath, rehearsing the words she had prepared while grappling with the gnawing anxiety that accompanied her presence. "Hi everyone," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Laughter echoed, voices overlapping as they exchanged their ideas. Despite the noise, a sense of inclusion enveloped her, yet she remained the outsider, an observer trying to find her foothold. This was her opportunity to engage, to ask for help, and to contribute her voice more assertively. As the discussions flowed, Sarah noted the confident exchanges amongst her peers. They spoke with a nuanced understanding of the subject matter, rapidly citing studies and theories. The erudition in the air felt like a double-edged sword, cutting deeper into her insecurities. Did she have anything valuable to add? The relentless tide of doubt surged within her, yet she quelled it with a core of resolve. "Can we maybe look at—" she began, trailing off as some members shifted their attention back to the screen. Instead of retreating, she pushed through, recalling Mike's advice. "I think we should consider our personal experiences with this topic. I can share some insights about how our emotions influence decision-making in real life." Silence fell momentarily, But it wasn't the dismissive silence she had feared. A few pairs of eyes shifted toward her, curiosity piqued. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. As they progressed through the meeting, Sarah found herself accelerating past the original boundaries of her timid contributions. Her stories about parenting intermingled with theories, illustrating not just points on a diagram but embodying the emotional realities they discussed. Each response she received was warm, acceptance flooding the space around her. Their encouragement ignited something within, a sparking realization that her lived experiences were not only valid but enriching. As the hour waned, she felt lighter, the burden of self-doubt easing under the weight of collaboration and support. The team began to express enthusiasm about incorporating her insights into their project. Yet even as affirmation washed over her, a niggling thought lingered: what if they were just being polite? What if once again, she placed herself in a situation ripe for disappointment? After everyone dispersed, Sarah lingered, grappling with the familiar sting of vulnerability. Encouraged by the acceptance she had received, she approached her group leader. "Can I ask for feedback on my contributions? I want to ensure I'm on the right path." The leader nodded, a smile breaking across his face. "Absolutely. I think your perspective adds real depth. Don't hesitate to share more like this." His words resonated, a validation that soothed her insecurities and cemented her commitment not just to the project, but to continue this journey of intersectional dialogue among her peers. That night, she reflected on the meeting, her heart swelling as she considered how far she had come. The fear she had faced that day had morphed into excitement for learning, for connecting, for growing. Yet, she knew this was just the beginning. Her mind flickered to the next class, where discussions would focus on conflict resolution, something she had avoided in her personal life for years. How could she navigate the emotional landscapes between differing viewpoints without retreating into silence? Would her newfound courage hold firm in the face of opposing opinions? These questions sparked a blend of anticipation and apprehension within her as she prepared for the next challenge. The real test loomed just out of reach, but she felt ready. Ready to engage, to advocate for her ideas, and to assert herself even more boldly than before. Just as she began to picture her upcoming class, an unexpected message pinged on her phone. It was from Mike, asking how the project meeting had gone. She hesitated for a moment, fingers hovering above the screen, feeling the urge to share not just her successes, but also the flickering shadows of doubt that still lingered. With a newfound determination to embrace the entirety of her experience, she crafted her response, ready to face whatever this journey would bring next. It was time to delve deeper, to confront the conflicts ahead and emerge with clarity. But as she pinpointed her next steps, a shadow of anxiety lurked at the edges of her excitement. What unexpected challenges awaited her in the realm of conflict? Would she maintain this newfound courage when faced with dissent? Walking into the classroom the next day, Sarah felt a familiar flutter of anticipation mixed with an undercurrent of anxiety. The faces around her seemed embedded in a collective resolve, each person ready to confront the weighty discussions ahead. And yet, she silently questioned her place among them. Would today be the day her voice faltered under the strain of conflicting viewpoints? The instructor welcomed the class with enthusiasm, illuminating the importance of conflict resolution in both personal and professional landscapes. Sarah straightened in her seat, reminding herself of the affirmation she had received, a steadying rope to maintain her balance amidst the churning water. Conflict can often be a source of growth, the instructor began, eliciting murmurs of agreement. It can push us toward understanding and collaboration, provided we approach one another with empathy and openness. She sensed the weight of the unspoken challenge. Each point could either bring her closer or expose vulnerabilities she was still hesitant to reveal. As the class split into groups for a role-play exercise centered on negotiating differences, a knot of apprehension formed in her stomach. She was partnered with two classmates who exuded confidence, pushing their points with the ease of seasoned negotiators. They began discussing a fictional dilemma that mirrored real-life situations: how to balance work responsibilities with personal lives. As they exchanged ideas, Sarah felt the impulse to retreat. "Let us hear from Sarah," one of her partners said, the spotlight shifting abruptly. Her heart raced. She could feel the blood rush to her face as all eyes turned toward her. Had she prepared enough to summarize the consensus, or would she falter under scrutiny? Taking a deep breath, she recalled her triumph from the meeting, suddenly aware of the extraordinary growth in her ability to contribute meaningfully. In our scenario, it's vital we recognize our individual needs alongside our team goals. Using transparent communication allows us to express what we truly require to thrive without compromising our roles. Her words felt tentative but grounded in clarity. The discussion continued, and as she shared another perspective, an unexpected realization struck her. She was no longer merely a passenger in the dialogue. Her insights were crucial in guiding the discussion toward constructive resolution. Yet, there was a voice within her, a whisper hard to dismiss. Was she truly as competent as those around her thought? Doubt threatened to cloud her newfound confidence. But instead of retreating, she chose to confront it head-on, asking her partners for feedback, testing the waters of her courage. Their encouragement surprised her. "Sarah, your viewpoints added depth to our approach," one of them remarked, their excitement echoing in the room. For the first time, she felt the weight of her contributions settle with a comforting acknowledgement instead of a burden. As the class came to an end, Sarah reflected on her progress. The once daunting specter of conflict now felt transformative, a crucible for her personal evolution. With each engagement, her resolve solidified like iron tempered by fire, urging her to take on deeper challenges. However, an unsettling thought loomed large as she packed her belongings. Would her newfound voice withstand harsher criticisms? What would happen when the discussions shifted from the familiar landscapes of empathy to the treacherous terrains of fundamental disagreements? As she exited the classroom, a surge of determination washed over her. She would seek out opportunities to practice these skills outside the classroom. Deliberate confrontation of her fears became the next step in her journey. Could she replicate the support she felt today when facing tougher conversations in her personal life? Just then, her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Mike, asking whether she thought about stepping in to co-lead a team initiative. The question twisted her stomach. What if she faltered? The prospect of leading brought forth a blend of excitement and dread. Would she allow the momentum to carry her forward, or would she hesitate at the edge, gripped by fear? The path loomed ahead, but its twists and turns promised growth. It was the lead-up to something crucial, a test that could either propel her into a new realm of confidence or entrap her in self-doubt once more. The real confrontation was yet to come, and she felt the echoing call to embrace it. The sun hung low in the sky as Sarah walked to the community center, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Today was her first meeting as co-leader for the new initiative Mike had suggested. She had stepped up, putting into practice everything she had learned about navigating conflict and collaboration. This was no longer merely an exploration of her ambitions. It was an invitation to wield her voice in a leadership capacity. As she entered the center, the atmosphere hummed with energy. Committee members exchanged ideas, leaning over tables scattered with papers and laptops. Their enthusiasm enveloped her, but self-doubt tremored just beneath the surface. Could she truly lead a group? What if her contributions failed to resonate? But then she remembered the validation she had received in class, how she had transformed from hesitant observer to a key contributor. Clutching her notes, she reminded herself that she had the right to take up space, that her experience was valuable. "Let us get started," Sarah announced, her voice steadier than she felt as she surveyed the room. She outlined the agenda, the rhythm of her words grounding her in purpose. Unexpectedly, her nerves began to dissolve as she spoke, energized by the engagement surrounding her. Throughout the meeting, she encouraged dialogue, weaving together the various ideas pitching back and forth like a vibrant conversation. Questions poured in, and Sarah felt herself leaning into each discussion, offering insights while drawing from her own life experiences to illuminate the path forward. Collaborative problem-solving emerged, and for the first time, she recognized her influence. She was not merely participating, but guiding the current of conversation. Towards the end of the session, As her team began to synthesize their ideas into actionable steps, a hand raised. "I appreciate the way you've led us, Sarah," one member said, sincerity lighting their expression. "Your experience lends perspective I didn't expect." That moment served as validation, a resounding echo of her journey so far. Not only had she conquered her fears, but she had also forged meaningful connections and created a productive environment. As the meeting concluded, enthusiasm bubbled through the air. They had built a foundation of collaboration. Sarah left feeling accomplished, her heart swelling with newfound confidence. Days passed in the following weeks, and Sarah continued to embrace the responsibilities that came with her leadership role. She also took the time to genuinely develop relationships with her peers, sharing her learning experiences and encouraging each member to voice their contributions. This nurturing atmosphere lightened her worries, allowing her to push further into her potential. One afternoon, while diving deeper into her academic studies and project planning, she received an unexpected call from Mike. "I'm proud of you, Sarah. I've seen the way you've grown in these meetings and in class. It's been inspiring." "Thank you," she breathed, warmth blooming in her chest. "I feel like I'm finally stepping into my skin, moving past so many barriers I had built." "Have you thought about how this is translating into other areas of your life?" he asked, prompting her to reflect. She paused, the realization dawning on her. In the past few months, she hadn't just gained skills. She had stabilized her identity as a learner and leader. Lessons learned regarding vulnerability, collaboration, and perseverance had echoed into her home and her parenting. Her children had witnessed her transformation, absorbed the lessons she embodied. They had begun to engage more readily with challenges, embracing the messiness of learning alongside her. Building her self-confidence had redefined possible futures not just for herself, but for her entire family. That evening, Sarah sat amongst her children, sharing stories about her day. They hung onto her every word, laughter bubbling over as she delved into their own struggles and victories. Her ability to articulate her experiences inspired them to reflect on their own dreams and fears, forging deeper connections within their family unit. As she tucked her kids in that night, a profound sense of fulfillment blossomed. The shadows of inadequacy that once loomed over her were now merely artifacts of her journey. She had transformed her fear into courage, her hesitance into action, and in doing so, had connected back with the ambitious, brave girl she had once aspired to be. Sarah stood in front of the mirror, smiling at her reflection. No longer was she just the single mom struggling under the weight of her dreams. She had accomplished far more than she ever envisioned possible. Today, she stood as a co-leader and a source of inspiration. Her journey had brought clarity not just about her professional ambitions, but about the resilience and adaptability that defined her. Asking for help had become her strength, and actively seeking it had bound her to a community of support, learning, and growth. With a newfound solid confidence, Sarah prepared for her next steps. She envisioned herself continuing her education and pursuing a career in healthcare, driven by an unwavering commitment to help others. Her heart surged with gratitude and excitement for the future, ready to embrace each challenge, knowing she had already proven herself capable of scaling new heights. Now was the moment. Tomorrow she would sign up for the next set of courses. The life she had always envisioned was now firmly within her reach, and she was ready to conquer it. And as she closed her eyes, she whispered a promise to herself. This was just the beginning of a beautiful journey, one that transcended survival and embraced thriving. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these inspiring tales alive. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey. Let's share thoughts on our personal transformations. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You can drive change for them by spreading the word. Don't wait even one more second to support this channel and be part of our empowering community.